Stallion returns. Chapter 20. Cries in the night. Edgar was the first to hear the cries coming from the woods. It sounded like 100 crows had all taken flight at once. He pulled himself up out of his chair and went out onto the back porch of the house. Such a cacophony of sounds rose up out of the woods, and wouldn't you know it, that got all the mares up in a tizzy. Edgar could count how many times he'd gotten to the barn over the past week and found them all in an uproar, nervous about whatever it was. Maybe this whole black stallion thing, or maybe not. They'd cleared up the mystery about the rat at the door, so that was no longer hanging over his head. What could be making him so nervous? Pamela joined him in the stables, her long blonde hair braided down her back, and her riding wear ready to take her best gelding out on the pasture lands. Well, at least Onyx was calm. The big horse was all saddled up, as Luke knew that Miss Pamela had a ride scheduled that morning. He'd hoped that Amber would be riding too, just so he could see her again. They'd yet to have that meetup she promised, which seemed like ages ago, but really was only a few weeks back. Luke didn't like to wait, and where girls were concerned, he didn't like to be taking the back seat. But it was clear to him that Miss Pamela Cartwright, Thunder Rose matriarch, and his boss, after all, might have some concerns about him hanging out with her only daughter. Well, that remains to be seen, he thought to himself, thinking he'd make a trip up to the main house to do just that. He'd call on Amber and bring her some of those flowers he'd been tending in the back gardens. Yeah, he'd do just that. Horses calmed now with Edgar's special calming tincture. Pamela saddled up and ready to depart out the stable doors. Luke with his heart on his sleeve, and Amber singing an old love song she'd heard on her radio last night. The ghosts of Thunder Rose tucked up for a quiet afternoon. However, Moxie was not feeling so all as well. She'd heard strange sounds coming from the forest late last night as she'd walked the short distance to meet Diego by the fireside. Everything didn't seem so benevolent to her at the moment. She was still trying to figure out how to tell Diamond she was leaving the Pink Lady and what she'd be doing with her life after that. Diego had said she could stay with him, but he lived in the bunkhouse out back with Luke and Billy, and he still tended bar at the Pink Lady to help out his Aunt Diamond on busy nights and some weekends. Moxie had too many questions and no answers about her future. Maybe she just needed to take some time to come up with the answers. After all, the universe couldn't deliver her what she wanted if she wasn't even clear on that herself. She decided to take a walk in the woods and then go spend the night in town at her apartment. She decided to take care of herself once and for all, and that meant she had a lot of deciding to do. Chapter 21. It all works out now. The woods welcomed Moxie in as she made her way out towards the center to the clearing they had used as a meetup spot when the Screech had been working their darkest magic. It felt like a comfort spot to her as she recalled all the time she'd had here with her friends at Thunder Rose Ranch. But there was that sound again. It sounded like crying and a little muffled sobbing, but no one else from the ranch would be out here. Would they? Moxie tiptoed towards the sound. She wasn't sure what she was hearing, and she tried to hone in on her senses. Should she be afraid right now? Again the crying, and then a large bunch of cries flew up and out overhead. These woods were well known for their trickery. It wasn't all light in these parts. Well, 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 a strange voice sounded up ahead. In her line of sight, through the pines, Moxie could make out a campfire. Did everything scary always have to start with a campfire? She shivered, recalling the Screech and their macabre dances around their encampment in the woods. Up to no good? Possibly. A trickster? Maybe. Just some old guy out camping? Could be. She decided she didn't want to know. But what if someone was hurt? Hello? Moxie called out tentatively into the forest. Is there someone there? A branch snapped. A tree groaned. And then bursting through the pine came young little Ellie Rafters, clothes torn from the brambles, hair wild and tangled with pine needles, whimpering something that sounded like, I can't go on like this much longer. The old lady made me do it again.